Hey everybody, it's Casual Boops coming at you with another video, and today I'm going to get to show you another brand new tank, the GSOR 1008 or 1008 or 1008, I'm not sure, the GSOR. It's a tier 8 British tank destroyer premium tank that's new to the game here. It's going to be in the loot boxes, just like the Bisonte. And I guess I do want to just start out by saying first, if you are trying to acquire one of these tanks specifically by buying loot boxes, you should know that they will sell, Wargaming will sell these tanks again at some point. It might not be for 3 or maybe 6 months or 9 months, but they will eventually sell these tanks for money that may be less than you would spend on boxes. Like I've heard of people spending, hundreds of dollars trying to get a certain tank and they never get it. So be aware that just gambling is not cool. And that there will be a way to get these in the future. So I just want to start out with that. And then also, if you like what I'm doing here, be sure to, I guess I'm supposed to say, hit the like and subscribe and the bell button or whatever. Anyways, having said that, I am also going to do a video about the holiday ops and so on, the mechanics, the loot boxes, the whole thing. I'm gonna do a giveaway too. So be sure to have a look out for that coming up pretty soon here. Probably even maybe this week. Anyways, okay, so now we've gotten through that. This is another tank that's going to be in the loot boxes, and I'm going to this review is going to be a little bit different. So I'll use the channel, the bookmarks, the chapters. So if there's something you want to skip toward in the video, be sure to just hover over the bar and you'll see the different parts of this review, because it's going to be a little bit, this is a weird tank, and so I'm going to spend a little more time on like the stats breakdown, just because there is stuff to talk about here, and I feel like it's more than just reading tanks GG. There's a lot more to that. So okay, having said that, okay, so now let's get into the actual tank itself. First and foremost, I think the tank is very good in the right hands, but also be very frustrating, and it's balanced in a lot of ways. One of the ways that it's balanced is by having a very weird crew layout. So it has the same crew layout as like a French medium tank crew, where it's got the 3-man crew, and then you got the commander who's a radio operator and a loader, and then you got a gunner who's a loader, and then a driver who's just a driver. So this is identical to like the 1390 and the 13105, same thing, except the problem here with the British tank destroyers is that I checked on this. There are no British tank destroyer crews, British tank destroyers that have a crew that even remotely resembles this. So what that means is you're going to struggle to optimize the crew a bit. I think the closest thing you're going to get, the closest way you're going to get this is I think the 4005, the shit barn, has a commander that is also the radio operator. So that's probably the closest that you're going to get, I suppose, like, because that means and why that matters, I suppose I'll just go to this. Why that matters is that your commander gets the option of getting recon, which increases your view range, and then the radio operator duty also gets situational awareness. So if you have a commander that does both of those things, you have to get both of them there. So like, that is the tank probably that you'll use for this, and it's also kind of strange because this tank very much relies on camouflage, and so like it wouldn't be, I don't know how good your like tortoise and badger crew are, but like mine don't have full camo on a tortoise and a badger because it's not really how those tanks play, and the GSOR definitely is a camo monster, so it sort of plays like a charioteer, but then your crew skills don't really line up. Like your commander is a gunner in the charioteer, for instance. So what I'm trying to say is that's one way that they balance the tank, I think, and so I actually felt compelled. I trained a crew specifically for the GSOR. I used some of last year's ladies, just because I wanted to kind of min-max and see what the thing was capable of, and that's the only way you're going to get the min-max that you can possibly get. And even so, I dumped a few crew books at the thing just to get it up to a workable level, and it could even get better than this. But okay, so the first and the foremost, I think the one thing people are going to see is that in Tanks GG, and I'm going to flip back and forth in this conversation. So in Tanks GG, you can see some of these things really easily. The things to note here are the penetration on standard rounds is not very good. Like this is a fine number, but as far as other tank destroyers, it's relatively low, right? Like your Scorpion G is pretty run-of-the-mill for tier 8, and it's 246, and this is 226. And I will say that you notice the difference. However, the final accuracy being as good as it is sort of like you'll see. I mean, it's pretty good, but it's also like you notice the lack of penetration, and I'll say that like here, for example, here I'm gonna just flip to this clip. Like this is what mine does. You would think. Great. So I just missed 2 of those 4 shots. That was awesome. And here's another shot. Like this is another example of what the accuracy can be like in my experience. Now, granted, these are really long-range shots, but yeah. So I wanted to point those things out because the accuracy is okay, is good, but you do notice the lack of penetration. The alpha is kind of okay, but you also get a full round clip. So the clip potential being 1280 is fantastic, and the interclip being 2 seconds, you can really pump the rounds out. But that doesn't mean, and we'll see this in the replay that I'm going to showcase. Like you definitely notice that it's better to spend the time to aim the shots and make sure that they all land, because it doesn't aim as fast as it shoots, or I should say you will be loaded to shoot your next round before you're fully aimed again. So that's something that's like a T57 problem. Also, the reload time on the drum is horrendous. Like this felt really bad to me when I was playing it. Like if you shoot twice, or maybe 3 times, you're like, oh, do I, or maybe you shoot once or twice, right? So you're like, oh, I have 3 rounds in the clip. Do I wait with this, or do I reload the clip and wait for 45 more seconds or whatever? Like I think my crew can get it down to just under 40 seconds. Or if you have 2 rounds, do you hold on to the 2 or do you reload because that takes 40 seconds? Like this is a huge deterrent. It also, it seems like it holds a lot of ammo, but I felt like I was definitely limited in the ammo in late game scenarios, so that's something. What other downsides do I want to talk about necessarily in this? Oh, okay. One thing people are going to say, you're going to see reviews on this tank, and they're going to say, oh my god, the penetration on the premium rounds is 321, that's so broken and so good and blah blah blah. And that's true, that is the premium penetration. However, this is something that Tanks GG doesn't show you. In the game, if you hover over the ammo, you'll see these different numbers, the statistics about the shots, about the different shells, the shell velocity and so on, average penetration. So what that means is like this is a standard round and it says 226 to 211. That's not a 25% RNG roll, that's the penetration drop off with range. And why that matters is because this is the premium round where it goes from 321 at point blank to 220 at range. So that is a substantial drop off. That's 100 millimeters. And just for example, like this is the charioteer drop off. It goes from 268 to 250. Like you lose 10, which is pretty normal, right? Like tortoise, for instance, you go from 326 to 298. Like that's about 30, which you notice that a lot. But what I'm getting at here is if people are just going to say, oh, it's got really good premium penetration, they're ignoring a big minutia, a big nuance of the tank where the premium penetration drops off pretty far. And I actually wanted to show this clip really quick to demonstrate how that plays, because I have an example here as well. Okay, so here I have a Type 4. I've got premium rounds loaded. He's about, what is that? He's I don't know, some distance away. And man, bear in mind my crappy aiming, right? But and I also didn't have time to really aim before getting shot at and stuff. So, but I penned 1, right? So I'm 1 for 4, and now we get to reload for 40 seconds. Get splashed by artillery, and I'm gonna load another premium round. And all this time, that Type 4 is getting closer to me. Still can't really, like, I don't mean to, like, waste anybody's time or anything, but this is just the reality of this tank, is that the reloads in between the drums are long. Okay, so now I'm loaded, and he's close. So now the premium penetration really, really shines, because I can just kind of cheese the Type 4. So that's the best example of how that GSOR premium round penetration drop off, works, in my opinion. Like, there's no better demonstration. Okay, so having talked about that, let me see here. What other weird things? Okay, the other thing is, this is a very quirky tank, and I'm going to talk about equipment at the same time as the gun handling here in the stats, and I'll explain. You'll understand why here in just a minute. So, the aim time is pretty good, and the final accuracy is also pretty good, but and also the turret traverse is like a laser beam. Like, this is like Russian medium, like 140, like object 140 levels of god tier awesome. But the rest of this is really, really bad, right? Like, so when you move the hull forward and backward, it blooms a lot. And when you turn the tracks, it blooms a lot, like way worse, like 20% worse than a Scorpion G is what this amounts to. So this is really tricky because when you look at the equipment choices, I struggled quite a bit with the equipment choices. You choose a improved rotation mechanism, and you think, oh, this will be great. But it does help the traverse. The traverse dispersion a little bit, but it doesn't help it as much. Like, it's still bad. Even I tried to min-max this, and it was still bad. So, I tried a gun lane drive with a gun lane drive directive and all that stuff, and that improved the aim time, but the aim time's not really the problem, right? The bloom was huge, and then, the reticle came back in pretty quick, but it still bloomed out enormously. So, it's also a very slow tank. I'm sorry to flip-flop back and forth around here, but like mobility-wise, you can see here the power to weight difference, 14, 15 or so. Like, it moves like somewhere between a medium and like a slower medium, right? So it does have a pretty good top speed. Like, if you're going down a hill, you'll get this, but otherwise it moves fairly sluggishly, I would say, especially going up a hill. Oh my god, this is not a hill climber. It's gonna have a hard time with that. So with that in mind, one of the first things I did was try to throw a turbo on this and see what it would do, and the answer is not a lot. Because it's a tank destroyer, it doesn't get the 10% bonus to engine power, it just gets 7.5%. So 7.5% bonus to not a lot is not a lot. So the turbo wasn't really useful. And so I was really struggling with, what do you put on this thing to make it good? And I went with vents, because that's just a great way to reduce the drum reload and all that kind of stuff. And I have purple vents on there too. And I decided, like, I tried out the low noise exhaust to try to see if I could get the camo sort of min-maxed in a way that, like, this is my crew right now, and if I have let's see, it's got full camo. Let's just put a camo on it real quick just to show, like, the camo rating of this thing, 39 when it's sitting still and 25 when it's stationary. That's pretty good stuff. But as soon as you shoot, all that goes away. So I felt like if you had the low noise exhaust, this would be a way that you could probably set this thing up where you could probably play the pocket passive light tank if you needed to. The base view range being 370, I think it's 370, really kind of hinders you. I'll be honest, where is it here? Yeah, 370. Especially because, like I said, the crew layout is such that, like, it's really, by the time you're getting all the view range skills, it's like 5 or 6 perks, right? So, like, I was able to get to 465, but that was because I have the purple vents and I have the food, and then I've got a crew with brothers in arms and also situational awareness. So you have to kind of work at getting the view range to an acceptable level where you're spotting for your own damage. And also the tank turns, the hull turns very slowly. Let's see, where is it in the mobility, right? So the hull traverse, tank traverse is actually worse than a Scorpion G, right? So if you've ever played that tank, you know how slowly it turns. That's part of the reason I have this directive on there, is just so I can maneuver the thing a little bit. It just turns like a boat. So these are, there's good things, there's bad things here. Yeah, so it's a really mixed bag, and so if somebody just says, oh, I'm gonna just throw a rotation mechanism on there and some vents and call it good, like, I don't think that's gonna be the best way. And so where I ended up with this thing is I tried to kind of lean into the whole camo sniper from range kind of role, and I threw one of these on here, the improved aiming. That combined with all the the crew and the vents and the food and everything got my final accuracy down to like 0.27, which sounds really good, but then I'll also get into like, you'll see in the replay, it's really great but you have to let it lay in. You have to let the gun behave. Gosh, what other things? There was so much to talk about. Like, this is a very quirky tank. Okay, so you have 11 degrees of gun depression, which is excellent, over the front and most of the sides and so on. And then getting toward the back here, over the engine deck, you still get 8, right? So you can, I noticed the flexibility here quite a bit. 8 degrees over the back is excellent. But one thing that is you're gonna probably notice this when you play the tank a little bit here. The gun elevation, the maximum that you can point the gun up is 10. So you get less elevation than you get gun depression. And that doesn't sound like that big of a deal, like, oh, why do I need to point my gun up? But you'd be surprised how often this comes into play. And this actually comes into play in the replay that I'm gonna showcase. And like El Haloof, if you're like going down the hill into the valley and there's somebody spotted at the top of the next, hill, you probably can't shoot those guys, right? So this really constrains what this tank is capable of and how you're able to put the tank, put the gun to use, right? So, okay, so gosh, we covered the crew, we covered the view range and all the weird crew layouts and all the equipment and the dispersion and so on. It's just an odd, armor-wise, there is no armor. I could occasionally get some wall bounces on some of this stuff, but you just really don't depend on that. Really what you're trying to do is find a ridge that you're going to climb up very, very slowly, and you expose just a lid, like just this tiny little turret, and then you dump a bunch of rounds into them, and that's what you do. And it's really nice because if you do it right, you can just, the clippening, you can just, well, you know what? You can do this. I'll just show you the video here. Yeah, so here we have a Grill 15 on 1600 hit points. He's preoccupied with some of our teammates, and I see an opportunity. So here we go. Just gonna boop this guy and track him so I don't take a hit. And then there it is. He's gone. Okay, so I wait here, the 1390, I wait for him to shoot once and twice. I don't want to take the hits. And I see that he's either done, he's shot enough times that he can't clip me out. So I'm able to track him, and then the 2-second interclip means I can put the rounds in before he can even repair or whatever. And I ate a full health 1390 just now. Like, that is really the best part about this tank, is the fact that you can just almost every tier 8 tank that's not a heavy tank in the game, you can just delete those from full hit points. And a lot of the every tier 7 and all the tier 6s, and a lot light tier 9 light tanks and stuff. So the clip potential combined with the accuracy is very nice. But where I wanted to go with some of these gun stats is, this is a very peculiar playstyle. What Wargaming is trying to incentivize you to do is go to a place and then sit still and then move the turret around and be in your bush and then shoot things. Because when you do that, the gun behaves very, very well. But if you try to like move around, be advanced, be aggressive, and move the hull, like turning it or moving it forward or backward, the gun bloom is horrendous. And it's really hard to bring these numbers down because you don't get a vertical stabilizer in when you're a tank destroyer. So I think if you throw on the rotation mechanism, it gets that number down to like 0.26, yeah, 0.25, 0.26. So you throw in the rotation mechanism in the slot that is improved, and that essentially gets you to exactly where a Scorpion G is with no equipment whatsoever. So this is just an indication. They really, you'll see in the replay, it does not like to shoot on the move. You really need to let the gun lay in order to be effective. So yeah, that's just. I will say also the hit points. It does get better hit points than the Scorpion G. I thought I remembered that the Scorpion G having fewer, but 1200 is nice. You notice that you can take a few hits, but it's very, very fragile. So anyways, okay, so that was like I said, sorry for taking so long with this. There's just so much. This is such a weird, quirky tank that I wanted to make sure that I gave it all of the attention that it deserved. I'm still not entirely certain what the air quote correct equipment loadout is, because it's a weird tank. The one thing I'm certain of is that the camo net is the wrong choice and the additional grousers are the wrong choice. Beyond that, I think just about everything is, defensible. Maybe not a spall liner either, but beyond that, I think you could make a case for just about everything here. So when you guys get it and play around with it, and let me know, and I'll stop blobbering, and we'll get right into the replay. Alright. Alright, so we're going to start out on in an all tier 8 game with 1 artillery on Siegfried Line, and I realize I'm just going to tap 2 in this game because I think this game was right after the game where I showed you all those whiffs, and I was just kind of sick of missing and not penning, so I wanted to see what the thing was capable of, so I just decided to load up the gold and just see what it could do right from the get-go. So sorry in advance for that, and I was also very tired, so the play quality, there's some misplays in this replay, but it is what it is. Anyway, so we knocked down the bush here, and we're going to work this ridge line using our 11 degrees of gun depression. And you can see just how slowly the thing moves around this hillside. And we're finally loaded. And yeah, we get a good shot in here, but this is where I make a big mistake with this thing. I'm trying to dump the mag so quickly, like a donkey, that because I don't want to get spotted and get shot, that I missed almost the entire clip. So it's definitely more important that you get the rounds in the target than it is that you get the rounds out of your gun, right? So if I would have taken more time to actually aim those shots and put them where they needed to be, that would have probably made a substantial difference in this game. So that's the one thing that I learned from that specific experience, and you'll see that come into play later. But you can see I'm just waiting. You're going to make a cup of tea because you're on the drum reload, which is like 40 seconds. But I realize this is not, you're going to see tier 10s when you play this thing, but I wanted to show the good things, the bad things, and that was one of the bad things, is that the gun just, oh my god, it can be very frustrating. Every time I move the tank, you see, when I move the turret around, the gun stays very well behaved, but when I move the hull back and forth, it just blooms out super hard. And so that's something to be aware of. It's a very strange... Alright, now this is the Clippening. I get to just basically eat an IS-6. And yeah, he puts a round into me, and that's fine. He shot me once for 423, and I took, what was that, 1,200 of his hit points? So those are the kind of trades you want to make with this tank. And one thing I do kind of like about the long drum reload is that it allows you, like, okay, you have 40 seconds to sit and think about life and look at the game and look at the mini-map and decide where you want to be. Do you want to move to a different area of the map? Because you totally can, because you have 40 seconds where you're not going to be shooting anyways. So that's one really big advantage of the big long clip reload, is that it incentivizes you to reposition in between your clips in a way that would surprise people. Right, so the reason I'm coming over this way is I see this Lova who's trying to be aggressive on this corner, and so here we are. I'm loaded, and what I want to do here is I want to wait for this Lova to poke around the corner and shoot once, because I know that his reload is long, and once he shoots, I know that I'll have enough time to dump a few rounds in. I get the one, and 2-second interclip. It seems really fast, and it is, but I kind of messed that up. So we're 3 for 4, and those are pretty close range shots. So that's just an indication of, like, the drum reload can be really, really devastating, but you really, and the accuracy is such that you really need to make sure that you let the gun lay in, and the 2-second interclip, just because you can shoot doesn't mean you should. So, I enjoy playing this tank, but I think that bad players, or players that are newer to the game, or not as experienced, or not as dedicated, or whatever you want to say, bad players are going to have a harder time with this tank, just because it doesn't have any armor and it's very unforgiving, right? If you have enough in your drum to kill a tank and then you miss one shot, that might mean that you die, Okay, so I totally missed the fact that there were 2 one-shot tanks right there. Probably could have shot those guys, but I wasn't paying attention because I was very tired. So, anyways, and here we go. Look at the bloom on this thing. Like, I shot it in. I hit the shot, but I really didn't deserve to hit that shot. Like, the reticle was huge, right? And so now I'm going to try to spot the things. And look at this. So the gun, my tank is tilted in such a way I can't even see the STA-1. So I managed to find a little undulation that lets me tip the gun up. But even that little slope that I'm on right now, I was having trouble managing the gun elevation, right? Because the tank's hull is tilted on that side like that. So that's just an indication. I wanted to show this because that doesn't seem like an intense tilt, but it is. It's enough, at least, to make it so that I couldn't even shoot the things I wanted to shoot in this tank. So now we're on the drum reload again for another 40 seconds, and we get to think about life. And, there's the reason we get the optics the way they are. But I couldn't shoot that Scorpion right now if I wanted to. Right? Look at how the tank is tilted and how the turret doesn't tilt up like that. So, you know, that's what I mean. Like, it doesn't sound like a big deal to not have very good gun elevation, but it's the times when you need it, it's incredibly frustrating. So, and also driving is hard. So there's that. But okay, so I see a bunch of our teammates are, some of them have some hit points, but a lot of them don't. And I see we're just bleeding and dying to these tank destroyers, so I decide to use the mobility. And I'm just going to press W here, and I'm doing 35, 36. Like, it can move around, it does get up to speed, but look at this. Okay, so we aim all the way in, and then I can put the shot right where I want, right? So I was pretty happy with that. And now, okay, so here's a Scorpion, and I try to throw it in there without aiming, and I whiff that one. So that's a pretty good indicator. That's one of the reasons I wanted to show this replay specifically is when you let the gun aim in, it does what you want. But if you're trying to slap in the snapshots, it's really not going to go well for you. And there's not a whole lot that you can do about this, right? Like, you guys saw my crew in the garage. I was pretty well min-maxed. Like, I put a lot of effort into making sure that this thing was going to do what I wanted it to do. And I'm holding my shot on the artillery because I would need to kill that STRV, because I only have 2 rounds in the clip. So I knew I needed to kill the STRV or I would die. And now I put my last round on the M40, and, like, okay, luckily the M4A, like the Ravioli, shot the artillery, but otherwise, that Artie would have reloaded before me. He would have had the chance to shotgun me just because my drum reloaded so long. So that's one of those things where, like, luckily I had teammates that could pick up the kill. Otherwise, if that was just me, it was just me versus that artillery, I mean, probably I would have won because I could have ran away, but if you, like, get into combat and you're, like, in next to somebody trying to take him out and win the game, and then you miss a shot, that's it. Like, a lot of times that's the game. So I think this tank is going to be really good in the hands of good players. I think that mediocre players or middle-of-the-road players are going to have a really, really hard time with this. And I think there are very good things about the tank. I think there are very bad things about the tank. In general, if you... There is a strong carry potential, I think, with this tank, but it's somewhat limited by the fact that the mobility is bad. So I think you're going to see some monster games with this thing, but it's not going to be every game. Like, this isn't going to be the overpowered tank that you can't kill. This isn't a 279E. So, you know, don't get too caught up in the hype of it's the new hotness, it's the newest, bestest tank in the world, and you got to have this thing. I like it. I have fun playing it, and it does make really good credits, but at the same time, it's not always the most, like, watching the shells whiff can be very frustrating. So anyways, that's all I've got, and I know that was probably more than enough information. So hopefully this helps you guys decide whether this is something you want to aim for, I guess, in the loot boxes, which I don't really recommend or whatever, but or if there's something you just want to play. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.